J.T. Crowley is Talking Books. On this show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world.
Hello, welcome to Talking Books. I'm J.T. Crowley, the host, and today I have Dr. J.Emmett, a distinguished author from New South Wales in Australia. He's here to talk about his book, Your Unique Consciousness, The Eternal Path of Life. Dr. Emmett, please come and join me on the show.
Thank you. I'm Anthony J. Emmett. Good morning. Good evening.
It's good evening for him, and it's good morning for me. And we sound like the two Ronnies, everyone. Dr. Anthony, would you care to tell the audience a bit about yourself, who you are and why you wrote this book?
Yes. I have been a reconstructive plastic surgeon and a teacher of surgery in my working career. And I have been aware of consciousness and its effects all my life. As a child, I repaired the things that broke in our house in North Queensland, Australia, in World War II, when my father was the only doctor and surgeon in the area, and I was the one who had to fix everything as a child. And when I needed to know things, the knowledge would just come to me when I needed it. It's been like that all my life. I have this voice within, you might call it, that tells me things when I need them. As a child, I assumed everybody had that, but it turns out that while we may all have it, some people don't listen to it. So I've attempted to educate people as to what they have within and what a great benefit it can bring to them, their lives, and the world. Now, consciousness is everything we are. It radiates. And the way it radiates is the story of your life. We are all born. We are formed in our mother's uterus as a baby, and consciousness comes in to the brain, the mind, and every cell in your body is conscious. So it picks up what you're thinking. And it's useful for people to know the effect of their thoughts on their health. If you think happiness and love, this radiates to the cells of your body, and it helps you to be well and to be happy. Happiness is the big thing, but we don't realize that our conscious happiness radiates. It radiates to affect people around you. That's your charisma. And it affects the cells of your body. That's your health. And just as Pasteur discovered bacteria causing disease, we now discover that the thoughts of your mind affect your health as your consciousness radiates throughout.
That is fascinating. And everybody, now, when you look at this book, everybody, there are 19 chapters. Now, we're not going to go through all 19 chapters because we'll be here for me all morning and for Dr. Anthony Emmett all evening. So we have agreed to have a look at a sample of the chapters so as to give you a flavour. That's the whole idea of the interview, is to give you a flavour of what the book is about. If you want to know more, then you can go and have a look at his website at www.dranthonyjemmett.com.au. And there you'll find out more about him and not only this book, but all of his books that he's written. He has written a whole host of books, everybody. And on the written introduction, which accompanies the podcast, that's where you'll find the website page. You'll also see there's another website where you will see that he's a sculptor and a painter. And you'll see all his stuff there. It's absolutely fascinating, everybody. But that's up to you to go and have a look. As I said, the written introduction accompanies this podcast. So let's go to the first chapter that we've agreed upon, Dr. Anthony, and let's talk to the audience about chapter 2. And here we find you talking about divine bliss, the human mind, the power of consciousness, our extended life connection, energies beyond and faith inspire. And I'm intrigued as to why you are talking about these areas so early in your book. And do you think you're giving the potential readers enough insightfulness that they would want to look at your book in a greater depth?
Well, you might wonder why I've been so interested in a topic as consciousness. Most people don't understand very much about it. And I've been a teacher of surgery, and I am now attempting to teach people about their own consciousness because it's very easy to be unaware of it. It started, I guess, that I thought I should be doing more broad teaching. I had put up a poster display in 1982 for a new book we'd produced in Australia called Malignant Skin Tumours. Because Australia is very sunny, we were getting an epidemic of skin cancers, and I had produced a book for the medical profession in combination with a number of co-writers. And I'd put up a poster display at a big meeting. I wandered out into the trees to have a break. This had a forest around it, the meeting place. And this strange feeling came over me. It was a feeling of intense love that I'd never experienced before. It was powerful, very powerful. It's very difficult to describe because we don't have the words. You know, there are many things in the language we don't have a very good vocabulary to describe. Well, this intense love pervaded me for a period, and it was beyond human experience. So I didn't bother telling people about it at the meeting because they wouldn't have known what I was talking about. However, it occurred to me that I was being given a message that I should be teaching more broadly. So I have written a number of books attempting to explain consciousness. Now, consciousness is like an iceberg. There's 15% above the water, which is your everyday conscious that we're using right now. But the bulk of your consciousness is beneath, and it's what you might call unconscious in our everyday life. 85% of it. So what is the unconscious mind? Well, you go to it in sleep. You are educated. It works at a higher frequency than your everyday conscious. You also have the subconscious, which we use every day, but we're unaware of it. And then there's the higher conscious, which connects you to all that is in the creation. And most people are not very aware of the details of this. So I have attempted to explain all of this in a manner that is worthwhile and helpful. Yes.
No, when I looked at your book, I have to say I was fascinated with all the topics that are there. And it really did make me think about, as you said, being happy, in your own subconsciousness can contribute to your own health. And I thought that is so intriguing. And that's the thing that when I first looked at your book caught my eye. And I think it is fascinating, everybody. You really do need to have a look. Now, are we okay to move on, Dr. Anthony, to
Yes,
chapter 4? Now, it's a
yes,
short chapter, everybody, but you touch upon, I'm intrigued here because you've already touched upon this. You touch upon birth, mother and child, this world, love and drugs. I'm intrigued under birth, and I really wanted to get to this bit here. You talk about opening a new level of consciousness while you grow in the uterus, guided by the cellular DNA and RNA of parents. You talk about cellular supervision with the formation of the new person. Would you care to broaden and enlighten our minds here, Dr. Anthony?
yes. Well, while your body is being formed in the uterus, the womb of the mother, consciousness comes in, and the consciousness you're developing is the conscious level you're going to use for this life. You have every cell in the body becoming conscious with a memory. And so when you are born, you have this new level of consciousness that has been opened for this life. In your other levels of consciousness are the records, the memories of your previous lives, what you've been, what you've done, and why you have come here for this life. The mother in the first 2 years teaches the child love. Now, in the development of the body, there are certain things that have to happen according to schedule. You have to learn love in the first 2 years, and this becomes part of the self-image that you file in your subconscious, the part of the unconscious mind. So when you are dealing with love throughout your life, what you have learned in those first 2 years is crucial to the way you will see it. This is terribly important, and people often don't realize that what they are teaching the child in the first 2 years will become part of their self-image throughout their life. And the self-image is, we file it in our unconscious mind, but it's what we want to be, what we want to do, and how we'll behave. So teaching the child love in that time frame is terribly important. The other thing is that in the first 7 years, doctrines, beliefs, family behavior are all taught to the child, and these will be the gold standard of how to think and behave for that life. This is quite well known, but it's worthwhile mentioning it again. So the mind has had consciousness come into it. That consciousness is influenced at the beginning by the mother and the family. And this then is going to guide that individual through life.
Interesting thoughts, aren't they, everybody? Now we're going to move on to chapter 6, but whilst I'm going to ask, Dr. Anthony Emmett to what the question is, I'm just going to ask him just to tilt his computer screen up so that we can see a little bit more of him as he's slipping down. The other way, Dr. Anthony.
Oh, I see. How about that?
Now we've got more of him, everybody. He was starting to slip down the screen. That's better. Now,
Good.
chapter 6.
Yes.
I find you, Dr. Anthony, talking about God, conscious reality, matter and world, the Golden Age, and Paramanga Yogananda, Sir Aurobindo, Happiness, Life Force, Ethic, and Sai Baba Trilogy. I'm intrigued. What is Sai Baba Trilogy, and does it relate to all the other areas you're talking about in this chapter?
Well, when I decided to visit my past lives to prove to myself the reality of the spiritual aspect, I went to a clairvoyant who worked with Sai Baba. Sai Baba was alive in India at the time. This was 1996. And so I went to this clairvoyant and learned. I was retraining as an art student for 5 years after retiring from surgery, and I spent 2 years doing a session a week in deep meditation. And Sai Baba would join us and provide material from the spiritual side, from the spiritual dimension, to show me. They showed me details. It appeared in my mind, this wonderful vision of what I'd been 4,000 years ago. It was quite clear. So each time I went to see, the name was Beryl, each time I went to see with Beryl, Sai Baba would provide information and progressively educated me into consciousness and its meaning and what I'd been in previous lives. We've all of us have had previous lives, though in our present teaching, we're taught that's not the case. At least a lot of people are. And when you're taught that before the age of 7, it's difficult to change your mind and realize that you have been many things in many times, and that the depth of your personality results from what you've been, as well as from the parents you have been born to this time. So I came to know Sai Baba, who stated that he hadn't come to start another religion, but rather to explain more of what religions were all about. That, there are many, many different religions, but there's only one God, and that they should all be teaching about the one God, not about the conflicts and the differences. They should teach about love. Love is the most important thing in our life. We come here, love is everything. And so I spent 2 years learning from Sai Baba, and I've learned a lot since. I went to visit him at his ashram in India, and essentially what I was trying to do was to find the way the system works, because consciousness is everything we are. How's that?
Fascinating.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely fascinating. Dr. Anthony, shall we
Yes.
go on to chapter 9? Now,
Yes.
very short chapter, and you mentioned, Siri Sathya Sai Baba. And you were talking about making a friend with God and a subtle form. Now, under making a friend with God, you talk about, and this is the quote, God's limitless compassion for humanity makes him descend to earth in human form to show the world the path of divinity and righteousness. Where are you
Yes,
taking the reader here, Dr. Anthony, with this chapter?
yes. Well, Sai Baba was born in 1926, and he came to teach. And would you believe that we all need to learn? And consciousness is the big thing we need to learn about. Now, Sai Baba came in 3 incarnations. There have been many prophets over the years, and each one has had a religion named after them. Zoroaster, Muhammad, Jesus Christ, and all the others. And there are a multitude of religions, but there's only one God. And Sai Baba came to teach us more about that God so that we could apply it to each religion that we believe or don't believe. My father was an atheist. He was a very busy surgeon and doctor, but he didn't believe in the God that the religions taught about. He was a humanist. He devoted his life to his patients, and he believed his God was love and humanism. So I needed to prove to myself the spiritual dimension, and that's how I met Sai Baba, and that's how he educated me. See, we have this everyday conscious level we're talking in now, but when we go to sleep, it's a higher frequency level of consciousness in which we learn quite a lot. And that opens us to the deeper, higher conscious, which connects us to God, the energy of love, which is creative in the universe. All of this, I amplified my knowledge while being with Sai Baba, both in spirit in Australia and in the physical in Puttaparthi in India, near Bangalore. So Sai Baba, in his initial incarnation, was at a place called Shirdi, near Bombay, and he taught Muslims and Hindus together, and he taught them not to conflict, but to love each other. And then the present Sai Baba, who died in 2011, taught more, all the religions. He welcomed all religions to his teaching. Now, the third Sai Baba has been born and will manifest in India in time to come. And he is going to teach people communication by mental telepathy. There have been a number of people I mention in the book who have taught by telepathy and being able to plant thoughts into the mind of their students and to guide the way those thoughts are accepted and activated. So that is, there's a lot more about Sai Baba, which you'll find in the book. That's a very brief summary.
It is absolutely. You've got to read this book, everybody, with an open mind. It's not a bedtime story. It was never written to be a bedtime story. It's a book that's going to make you think, and it certainly made me think. And I want to now go, Dr. Anthony, to chapter 14. And I find you talking about relationships here. You know, Gaia, the living planet, your life on Earth. You talk about fear. You talk about truth. And I'm intrigued. There's electricity. Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Now, under the section electricity, this really did fascinate me. You mentioned energy form is one of the great motivators. In the book, you say, we are electric organisms. Edison and Tesla. This is very, for me, this caught my eye, and I just couldn't put this chapter down. So,
Well,
would you like to tell us what's happening here?
Each of the nerves in your body works by electric transfer. They work this out on the nerves of a cuttlefish, which are quite large, and they were able to show that the nervous impulse traveling down the nerve does a series of potassium-sodium exchanges as it goes down the nerve. And that's the basis of the way the brain and the nerves work in the body. Now, I put in a little bit of the history of how Edison used direct current. Tesla came along and used alternating current, but Tesla had great understanding. He understood multidimensionality. Most people don't understand that in this dimension, we have a certain frequency of energy in the atoms of the matter. And you can move to other dimensions by changing that frequency. And so it is with our levels of consciousness. We actually work at different levels of vibrational frequency in our everyday conscious, in the sleep level, in the subconscious, and the higher conscious. In the higher conscious, it's at a higher vibrational frequency or voltage, if you like, than the human consciousness can sustain. So when you are communicating with that level, you have to let it come to you, because you don't have the energy in your consciousness to operate at that level. You know that the unconscious mind is much faster than the conscious mind. First impressions, people say how important first impressions are. That's because they influence the unconscious mind at its very fast rate of analysis. For example, that you can put an image on the television screen for such a brief interval that our everyday conscious doesn't pick it up because it's slower, but the subconscious, the unconscious mind, picks it up because it's that much faster. In our unconscious mind, we do a lot of things that we rely on every day, but frequently we're unaware of what's happening. For example, the image that's coming to your brain from your eye is upside down. And in your unconscious mind, you turn it right way up, but you also interpret it. Much of hearing, touch, is interpreted in our unconscious mind before being presented to the conscious mind. We live in this world, but it's interpreted for us by our unconscious mind. And I've tried to explain a lot of this because I think it will help people to understand the way the world's going and what we need to do about it. Yes.
Isn't that food for thought, everybody? Now, chapter 16. I thought this was real thought-provoking. And I'm going to ask you, what is dowsing? And who is Noel Jordan? And where's your philosophical thinking around body-brain level of conscious awareness stem from?
Well, Noel Jordan, I think he's passed from this life now with a big heart attack. But he wrote a chapter on dowsing. Now, we are surrounded by energies. Dowsing was originally used to locate underground streams of water, but it can also be used to locate the energies of that are around us that we can't see. And the chapter on that really is the way you can get advice from a pendulum by allowing the pendulum to swing, and you can ask it questions and it will reply with a series of yes-no answers, a bit like a digital computer, which really is just a series of yes-nos. And Jordan was a clairvoyant to a degree and practiced this. And I put it into the book because I think people will find it very interesting to learn how to do this and how to get advice from it. Yes, many people through the ages have practiced this kind of asking for support from the energies around. Yes. Did I answer that?
You certainly did. That's now I understand what dowsing is. And as soon as you said mentioned water, I got it straight away. There you go.
Yes.
Well,
you can do it with a green stick that or a piece of wire. It's a way of finding energy we're surrounded by energy. They don't tell us too much about it because we'd use it for fighting our present level of humanity, when we're showing things, we use them for fighting. It's a bit dangerous to show them too much.
Well, we'll keep that one quiet, everyone. We'll keep it quiet, just between ourselves. Now, the last chapter we're going to go to, chapter 18. You touch upon spiritual healing, John of God, healing of Walter Cowan, recoveries with treatment from Dr. Brian Weiss using hypnosis.
Yes.
So under the last heading, the story, under this last heading, of the hypnosis, you're talking about the story of Catherine. This is an interesting little story, and I'm fascinated about John of God.
Spiritual healing is really telling your cells to get better and to behave well and having them listen and do it. Each of us can do this, but you have to believe in what you're doing. Every cell is alive, and if you tell it to heal, it will, as long as you do it in the right way. Now, people have been taken back into past lives by hypnosis. The the clairvoyant who helped me, had a friend who would take people back into previous lives by regression under hypnosis. This is done, and that's what Weiss was doing with his patient. But there was a man who lived near where I live now, who took an Australian girl back into a life in England in a little village. And they went through the details of this life. And then the two of them got on an aeroplane and flew to England, to this little village. And this Australian girl, who'd never been to England before, was able to show people in the village a lot of things that she had known in her previous life that were still there that they had forgotten about. So they were able to show that in this consciousness that we have details of what we have been before. And they proved this by taking the girl back to this village. Now, that's exactly what the psychiatrist did with this girl, to show that her psychosis had resulted from trauma in a previous life. Initially, when the psychiatrist was analyzing where this trauma had come from, this damage to her psyche had come from, they kept going back and back and back, and they found that it wasn't in this present life, but in a previous life. And he was in the process of taking her back and looking at all of this. Both the psychiatrist, who hadn't believed all this before, learned a lot, and so did the girl and the lady. And her friends noticed how much her personality had improved and how she was a much more lovely individual as a result of this understanding that had been brought about.
Do you know where this village was in the UK?
No, I don't.
He's going to give it away.
Yes, no, I'm afraid not. But as you know, there are many beautiful little villages, and I lived in the countryside in southern England for a few years when I was doing reconstructive surgery there.
Whereabouts?
So I lived in the village of Wood Green in the New Forest near to Salisbury.
I know it.
I was working with some very talented reconstructive surgeons at the time. That's why I went to England. I spent 4 years working there before I went back to repair congenital deformities in New Zealand for 5 years. And then I went back to Brisbane, Australia, where I set up regional clinics for the repair of deformities. And in the process, I studied the subconscious reaction that had much to do with the what you believe about healing is very important in the healing itself, because the mind is very powerful. And so I studied the subconscious reaction of patients to my surgery, and I was able to help them to benefit from all of this. And all of this has been related to why I've written a book about consciousness, because I know how much it can help everybody. And there's a great deal of detail there that we can benefit by using.
Now, I know this has got nothing to do with the book, but I certainly do, but do you believe in reincarnation?
Oh, well, I had to prove that to myself. Reincarnation is that your eternal spirit comes again to a human life. It's got nothing to do with coming back to the same family or the same country. The first, I had to prove this to myself. So the first life they showed me was 4,000 years ago in Assyria. But I've had lives in Germany, Italy, England, around. We've all done this. I've had a large number of lives, and I've written about that. But you have to understand that it is your consciousness that is eternal, and that in your higher consciousness, you are linked into all of those things, and you have this knowledge within, and you can be taken back by hypnosis, regressed into these things and learn. It's quite fascinating. I spent 2 years doing it while I was an art student. After I retired from surgery, I embarked on a fresh form of learning.
He's multi-talented, everybody. Who do you intend to write more books, and who would you like to see, reading this book and your other books?
Well, I'm essentially a teacher. And the reason I have written books is to progress knowledge and understanding so that we can all behave better and understand the what's happening with the world. For example, everything in the world has its own form of consciousness, and the world itself has a form of consciousness which we don't understand, but it's there. And we now have 8 billion humans, each of whom has a consciousness. Now, there's a mood of anger sweeping the world. Look at the news. There's so much anger about it. If you can teach people the value of love in their mind, in their body, in their life, but also the value of love to the world. Project love to this living planet that we're part of. Part of understanding consciousness is understanding the way the world is conscious. Everything is conscious. There's conscious life in water. We're 70% water. Consciousness is an enormous subject, and what we're touching on here is just a small part of it. It's the great untalked about thing because people don't understand it. Science understands consciousness but can't explain it, and so they don't talk about it. But people are increasingly becoming interested in consciousness because it is the basis of who and what we are. And the people I would like to read the book are anybody who seeks to understand who and what they are, which is everybody.
Fair enough. Where can people get your books from?
Well, as you mentioned, you can go. I'm on Amazon Central Author page. If you go to my website, which you mentioned earlier, you can see various of my books and how to get them. And art, I've done a website on art as well, because art is one of the ways to interpret the world. So we interpret the world by what we see, hear, feel, touch. But this is all interpreted through our subconscious into our higher conscious, which is where we really are. You think that your body conscious level is what you are, but there's much more to you, and you can learn about that and benefit yourself and benefit the world, because each of us has a part to play. And even though there are 8 billion of us, what we do, how we think, and how we treat other people, all influence the world. Because the most powerful thing is your spirit soul. Sai Baba once said that the most powerful thing is the individual spirit soul of each human on the planet.
Dr. Anthony J. Emmett, thank you so much for coming on my show. And the book is fascinating, it's eye-opening, and all I say is go and have a look at it. Go and have a look at the websites that are on the written introduction that accompany this podcast, and you'll see about his writings. But go and have a sneak view even of his art and his sculptures. They are intriguing, to say the least. Dr. Anthony J. Emmett, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm J.T. Crowley. Thanks for listening wherever you are in the world. Until next time, stay safe.